You're no longer in a couple relationship. You're no longer that family dynamic that you used to. It is painful when it feels like there's attacks coming from all angles. You feel isolated and alone.
Welcome to the Dad Central Show, the podcast that helps overwhelmed dads conquer stress, build confidence, and become the father their family brags about. Join Drew Solon, a leadership coach and father of five, and Ed Gow Jr., a fatherhood advocate and contributor to the Good Men Project, as we guide you through the journey of fatherhood. We'll show you how to connect deeply with your family, manage your time and energy better, and master tools to become the dad you want to be. Let's get started. What is up, everybody? It's Ed Gow Jr. from Dad Central. And man, there's more and more growth. It must be because it's still cold. It
Are you
must
talking
be.
about the spring and
No,
the
I'm
trees?
talking about your facial growth. And
Yeah,
like I'm going, when is it going to disappear? If
Kristen said the same thing. She's like, "Is
yeah,
this your new look, or
yeah,
what's going on?" I'd just been too tired to shave.
keep them guessing. Well, this is what you got, especially if you're watching video wise. We have to see what's next Drew's facial look. So keep them coming back for other reasons other than Dad Central. And that's why we're here, Dad Central, a parenting podcast to reduce stress and build confidence in fatherhood. And our show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believe that care is the best of a man because when men care for themselves and others, there is a positive impact. Other than the growth, Drew, how you been keeping?
A little bit tired, as I mentioned. Came back from vacation, which was focused on building connection and memories. So it was full. I was active, and I think that is what's contributing to the fatigue.
Wow. Okay. Well, as we get started our conversation today, I have a question for our audience, especially the dads. Ever feel like co-parenting is just damage control and not fatherhood? Well, today we're going to talk about how dads can master co-parenting, not just to keep the peace, but to strengthen your fatherhood journey, and seriously reduce daily stress. So that our topic today is how dads can master co-parenting to strengthen fatherhood and reduce daily stress. Drew, first thoughts before we go in.
Well, co-parenting is challenging. It's something that, depending on the dynamic of the separation and how the children are spending time with each parent, can be fraught with a lot of emotion. So you could say it's a minefield that sometimes can blow up on you if you don't have a good plan in place.
Absolutely. Well, these are the three ideas we're going to unpack during our conversation today. First of all, the mindset shift from reactive to strategic co parenting. Then we're going to chat about communicating with your co parent like a business partner. And then finally, reclaiming your identity as a father, even in a split home. So, first things first, we're going to talk about from survival mode to strategy. Drew, thoughts?
As we've been having conversations in our dad mentor community, and people are expressing some of the difficulty in going through these circumstances, you know, the difficulty I think comes in you're often feeling under attack, whether it's accusations or you're not doing enough, or even worse, you know, plus the fact that you yourself are having to cope with and process the breakdown of a relationship, that you've got both sides. And so learning to regulate ourselves, as well as understand and process our emotions in healthy ways, is a big challenge. And so that's why you're often in this idea of survival, because you feel like the attacks keep coming left, right, and center. So it's a very difficult place to be in when it comes to, if that's your state, and trying to engage in parenting or co-parenting.
Yeah, I just want to add to that with this topic. A lot of dads operate in defense mode when it comes to co-parenting. They're not on the offensive; they're usually in defensive mode. And many
And let's
dads,
just let's just jump in for a second
okay,
and make it clear that offensive doesn't mean that now you counterattack.
no,
That's not
no,
what we're talking about here.
no,
We're talking about offensive in terms of being proactive and having a plan and knowing what you need to do to care for yourself and care for your children.
100%, 100%. Yeah, fully. Thanks for the clarification. 100% to that. So good add on to that. And also, too, it can take a mental and emotional toll on dads. And you could have there's and I'm sure some dads can relate to this who are either listening or watching this, missed pickups, vague plans, emotional texts. It can be really a draining for a number of reasons, the area of co-parenting. And again, how many dads have the experience of even co-parenting? We don't a lot of times we don't even have experience being a dad, a husband, a provider, and then we're thrown into this totally oblivious world of co-parenting. Drew, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think the most important aspect, at least from my experience, is being able to process your emotions. That's the greatest barrier to effectively shifting yourself from surviving to thriving. It's also the greatest barrier to being able to effectively navigate the co-parenting dynamic, which to me actually falls below the importance of your engaging with your children in healthy, positive, proactive ways. So care for yourself, care for and focus on the relationship with your children and how you show up for them and how you engage with them. And then bottom of that is, okay, work on this co-parenting dynamic. So if I had to default, it's one, your self-care, two, the relationship with your children, three, co-parenting. And you should be mindful of that. Because if you're spending all your energy on dealing with this co-parenting dynamic, essentially your priorities are out of whack.
Yeah, I want to add a quote for our dads that are in this situation. You're not just surviving, you're building something. And builders have blueprints and tools that you can use. There are things like Google Calendar, Our Family Wizard, other things out there, and Winkley syncs or text check-ins for smoother handoffs because Drew and I have dealt with situations where just the handoffs can be a challenging situation. So having scheduling and also preset routines to reduce kid stress and co-parent tension. If you can put them in place, they make that very, very easier in the
I'm going
situation.
to
Go ahead.
add one more. You really need a lifeline for yourself. You need a person, a place, a practice that when you get triggered or when something happens, let's say a transition is missed, your co-parent doesn't bring the children and you're there waiting, waiting, waiting. Those are triggering instances, and so you need something, a person, a practice, a process that helps you work through the very real challenges that come up in this unfortunate dynamic. And so I would add that as a very important tool. Find that right person that you can make a phone call to. Find that practice: walking, journaling, prayer, meditation, exercise. Positive, healthy outlets, or a process that you take. Okay, I always wait 24 hours before I ever send a message or respond to a message that triggers me. You need simple things like that.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that. And it came up in our dad mentor last night. A dad was sharing about a somewhat a situation that relates to what we're chatting about right now, that having that outlet and also sometimes before you send that message, maybe getting another person to take a look at it because you're looking the message a certain way, someone else may look at it a different way. You want to make sure because when you're communicating, especially by text or by email, the emotions aren't there. It's just pure facts. Making
That's our
sure
next point.
there you well, there you go. Communication without conflict. And just to set the stage for communication without conflict, I'd just like to say this quote: most co-parenting stress isn't about the kids, it's about the miscommunication. Drew?
And why is there miscommunication? Because it's an emotionally explosive, often circumstance, and there's either unhealed uncoupling that hasn't happened. You're no longer in a couple relationship. You're no longer that family dynamic that you used to. So the bleeding over or inability to have proper boundaries that demarcates past relationship, current co-parenting dynamic are often blurred. And so that's why the miscommunications, I think, happen, because the inability to know what are the proper boundaries here, or two, establish the healthy, proper boundaries in ways that are going to serve your best interests and the children's best interests. So I think that that's important. And the other thing is, you ultimately have to, as many people have said to me, is you always have to take the high road, right? It's easy when we're caught up to want to retaliate, to get back at it, or to just respond in ways that aren't what we would call the high road. And so that's the takeaway is high road is how you need to communicate.
Yeah, I'll just throw out a suggestion here to dads that are involved in this situation. Take a business partner mindset. Be clear, neutral, and child focused in every exchange. And also use emotional detachment without being cold. Easier said than done. Easier said than done. And I even have two or three scripts that you can use. So say this to your co partner or co parent. Let's do what's best for blank, the child's name. Also, I'm hoping to find out a solution that works for both of us. And then finally, can we create a routine around this to avoid surprises? Just some suggestions of some scripts that you can use when those situations come up. Anything, Drew, you want to add before we go to our last one?
Yeah, I want to add an additional resource. So Chris Voss, he's wrote a book called "Never Split the Difference: Negotiating as if your life depends upon it." While I know it was not intended for co-parenting per se, I was in a high conflict separation experience, and so and it felt to me like my children are being held hostage. So what I found tremendously valuable about Chris's guidance is that it's very tactical, very practical, and also highly effective. And so for me, that was a great resource that helped give me the very tangible words, phrases, approaches with a person who is highly contentious, highly conflictual, highly adversarial. And so if you find yourself dealing with any of those types of characteristics in your co-parent, you really do need some expert guidance. And I would say Chris Voss's book provides an amazing resource to help you learn how to communicate very effectively. Very simple: listen, label, empathy, tactical empathy, as he calls it, mirroring, calibrated questions, all things that to me offer tremendous value. So if you're listening to this, you're experiencing difficult co-parent communication, take a look at Chris's guidance. I think it'd be really helpful for you.
Excellent. Slide into our last point, reclaiming your fatherhood identity. And, you know, we got to address the emotional weight. It's hard to feel like a real dad when you only see your kids part time, and it is a common and quiet pain. And we want to acknowledge that and put it out there. So we understand that. Drew, how do you want to go into this one, reclaiming your fatherhood identity?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, for me, this is part of what we've built in Dad Mentor and the Dad's Roadmap. Have to know your role and know the importance and value of your role in your child's life. And I think in terms of reclaiming it, yeah, it's probably taken a beating either because of the way you've been painted or described, or the way that your ex might be negative towards you. But the reality is that you as a father have value, and your role in your children's life is unequivocally crucial. The evidence is absolutely overwhelming. So we need to recognize that while these circumstantial situations may pull at that, the truth is grounded in how important you are. And so it is painful when it feels like there's attacks coming from all angles. It feels like nobody's listening or hearing your experience. You feel isolated and alone and without any resources or support for the very challenges you're facing. So, it is challenging, but I want you to hear from us how important and vital you are to your children's lives in every single way. And so that to me helps do this process of reframing your fatherhood, because it's grounded in the truth and the facts of the value that you hold to your children. Then recognizing that the most important factor when it comes to fatherhood is the relationship you have with your children. And even if you have limited time with your children, your relationship can still become even stronger than maybe it was before. And I know that to be true personally, as well as many of the other fathers that we've worked with or that have come in and through our dad mentor community and recognized how to go about building effective relationships in difficult circumstances. That's my piece to add to that about reframing fatherhood.
Yeah, I want to add to what Drew is sharing that it's not about consistency. It is about consistency, not proximity. Also, it's also showing up intentionally, even in small moments. In situations like this, if you say you're going to be their dad, do the best you can to be there consistently. Doesn't have to be long periods of time, but you're there. Your child or your children are counting on you. They're wanting to see you. There's and suggestions, bedtime FaceTimes, a shared journal or drawing notebook that goes back and forth, and a dad day tradition. No matter how complex or simple, even simple things are really, really key in this. So, as we close up today's conversation, we reviewed from survival mode to strategy, communication without conflict, reclaiming your fatherhood identity. Drew, what would you like to offer as a takeaway?
Yeah, dads, if you are struggling with co-parenting and the dynamic, I'd like to offer an opportunity for us to connect. You can reach out to me. I'd love to schedule a short call and see how I can support you. It's something that I'm gone through and I'm currently going through, but have really helped both myself as well as many of the fathers that, we've mentioned, are part of our community. So send me an email, Drew at dadcentral.ca, and in the subject line, put co-parenting, and I will reach back out to you and we'll set up a time to have a conversation to see how we can support you.
Excellent. Fantastic. Well, Drew already has a little crazy life, but I hope he gets crazier in a good way with some emails and some conversations. Well, as always, want to say thank you to Dove Men Plus Care, because Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact, sorry. Also, if you want to get in contact with us, email podcast at dadcentral.ca. You can check out the replays of our shows at dadcentral.ca/podcast. And finally, don't forget the website. Everything starts at the website, dadcentral.ca. So, as always, I'd like to say thank you for sharing the most important thing you have in your life, your time with us. And as always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace and make it better. Be well, and see ya and hear from you soon.